All right, let's kick it. Welcome to the Sobriety Diaries, friends. My name is Nate. I am a grateful recovering alcoholic and sober coach. My addiction has shaped the person I am today and given me the ability and voice to help others, and I simply wouldn't be here without it. Recovery is possible. The Sobriety Diaries is a video podcast where we talk to other recovering alcoholics and addicts. We hear their stories and hope to help others who may still be struggling. Head on over to the sobrietydiaries.com where you can apply to be a guest on the show and join our insiders list for early release episodes, exclusive content, and much more. Also, please share this podcast with just one person in your life who may still be struggling. You just never know what they may need to hear today. Happy Sober Day, friends. Thank you so much for downloading today's episode and spending time with me here on the Sobriety Diaries. You are the reason that we continue to work hard and produce episodes that are meaningful and to create this community around recovery, and you are part of that. So it is truly appreciated. Thank you so much for listening today. We are chatting with Michelle Smith today, one of my new BFFs, and I truly mean that. She is such a genuine person and does everything just for the right reason. You know, there's no ulterior motive behind it. She is engaged with her audience. She truly wants to and does help people. She says herself she went from a depressed, anxious mom using alcohol to numb herself and, you know, has moved on to this confident life. She is an author, a podcaster. She is an addictions counselor. She is the face and brain behind Recovery is the New Black. You know her. You love her. Let's open the diary on Michelle Smith. Michelle Smith, thanks so much for joining us on the Sobriety Diaries. I appreciate your time. How's your day going?
I'm doing really good. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Tell me something you're grateful for today.
Ooh, I'm grateful for my iced coffee.
Yes.
And I'm grateful to be able to be sober, to actually I'm hangover free, to actually enjoy it and be up to watch the sunrise, which is something that I wasn't able to say that I could do before sobriety. So I'm definitely grateful for my coffee.
I certainly want to talk about the great work that you do today with Recovery is the New Black and the Sober Mom Squad and all that good stuff. But I wanted to start and sort of walk through your story together. So let's start there.
Absolutely. So I was raised in the Pacific Northwest, and I had the pretty typical, what people say, not really a lot of trauma in my childhood. And I had a really good life from the outside, I think, perspective, people looking in of, I was raised with a father who was a well-known physician. I, did really well in school, played sports, did all the things, went to college. The really only big drawback was my father was an alcoholic. So, not always the crystal clear, perfect image that people thought, but we had this persona and image that we had to keep up of everything was really, great and fine and beautiful. And so, there was some trauma in regards to the aftermath of obviously being a child of an alcoholic father. And I had my first experience with death when he passed away. He was sober, but he passed away 2 years after he got sober from a massive heart attack. And so, my first experience with death was at 15 years old, going to your father's funeral. And it was a really big detriment to the community of where we lived, and found, comfort and love in my partner, who is now my husband, and went through college. Really didn't, experimented a little bit with alcohol, but I had this predisposition. I had the perfect example of what not to be. So I was really careful about my alcohol intake and recreational drugs. I was very off in regards to that. And so I went through life really just enjoying everything about it and not having to really have a reason to dip into mind-altering chemicals. Wait a few years and I became a mom, and life changed a lot for me. I was working multiple jobs. I really felt disconnected from life. I thought, motherhood's going to be really super exciting and all the things. And I really enjoyed all of it, but got really, really depressed really quick when I embraced motherhood because I had lived this life and created this career where I had expected all of these things. And I started falling short from my expectations of what I could handle being a mom versus before I was a mom. And
Yeah.
so I got into that darn mommy wine juice culture, slow and steady. And, I was really feeling disconnected. I was feeling depressed. I found out through this process that I had postpartum depression. I started having physical health issues. And so I slowly but surely started saying yes to yoga mommy wine culture, yes to tacos and margaritas. And I really liked the way that it made me feel. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
don't we like taking the rough edges off a really stressful day?
Yes. The effect. I drank for the effect for 20 years.
Right.
Yes.
And, what was like top shelf drinking of, sitting on the patio, enjoying sun and company, was wonderful until I started noticing that that wasn't enough. I wanted to drive home and stop at the store and have it for later. And so just those types of behaviors and that dependency started to creep into my daily life where my tools that I was using daily to de-stress, to unwind, to socialize, to have fun started being replaced more and more with activities that were related around alcohol. And a few years into that, I started making bad decisions and I started making decisions where alcohol was predominantly involved in where I was going to pick for restaurants. And, I wanted to go to places that traveled that were all inclusive.
Right.
And it was just like, of course, why would I go to Mexico and why would I go to all these places and not drink? I was associating fun with alcohol. And it started getting to the point where people were noticing, I was noticing, but I have a background in addictions and mental health. And so I'm thinking, Michelle, you have the tools, you know what to do. Why aren't you doing it? And it became this thing of, I'm not that bad, right? I started exploring with Alcoholics Anonymous and I'm like, well, these people are really terrifying me. Like I have the perfect example of like what not to be, but
Right.
I couldn't find the similarities. I could only find the differences because that's where I was at within the spectrum of my addiction at that time. And so I was like, I'm not there. I'm here. I'm good. I'll work around. I found a workaround. So I was looking for
Yes.
that, door that was like, this is what you have to do in order to keep alcohol in your life. And
I hung on the last 2 years of my addiction and did everything I could to protect my drinking. There was blaming it on depression. There was doctor's appointments that I made just to appease my family that weren't necessary. Everything I could think of to protect my drinking.
absolutely.
Yeah. Now, did you only have one child at this point?
Yes. And then I got pregnant and sobered up.
Okay.
Yep. Of course, because it's like the pregnancy syndrome. You can stay sober for your children,
Yeah.
um, but you don't have enough self-respect to stay sober once the child is out, right? Is
Yeah.
is birthed. And the cycle picked up from there. And so it just got really bad really quick. And, they say, oh, things have been different. I've had this length of sobriety. I think I can moderate or I can, I have more tools. I can go back in with a different approach, right? Because if alcohol is like, I was doing everything and anything to keep it a part of my life, like you said.
Yeah.
And so it really got bad where people were noticing, people didn't want to be around me. I was losing jobs. I was forgetful. I was, obviously waking up with the bruises. It's the same story. It just takes a little bit longer to get there. And so I made a commitment to my family to go to inpatient treatment. And so I did that. I went to a women's facility and gained an absolute tremendous amount of insight and tools. And I fought it tooth and nail but it was the best thing that I could have done. It's hard. You don't want to leave your babies. Like, I'm mama bear,
Yeah.
but I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to be here for Mother's Day, my anniversary, my child's birthday.
Wow.
But you know what, Michelle? If you do this, you never have to miss you never have to miss another celebration ever
Yeah.
again. Your daughter never has to blow out her candles saying, I want my mommy to be sober. And I did it. I did it for everybody except for myself.
Mm.
And so, as much as I gained, I relapsed 30 days after treatment. I wasn't prepared for the outside world. If you're changing inside and nothing's changing outside, what are we going to expect to be different? And so I didn't declare my house for, let's say, alcohol free, my sacred space. So Independence Day happened and 4th of July, and I looked for every reason that I deserved it and I could moderate. And as we
Yes.
know, Bender from there ended up in the hospital.
Wow.
Child Protective Services got involved, of course. And so it was just another opportunity for me to look at my life and say, Michelle, is this what you want for yourself? Your life has become unmanageable, and you are a person who cannot drink. That leaves endless possibilities of things that you can do. And again, not being able to stay sober for myself, but you are not going to take my children away. I love them that much, right?
Yeah.
And so I just, I took a different approach and I really started wanting it for myself. And so I looked at different treatment modalities, medication, therapy, things that brought me joy that necessarily weren't a built-in program. I took pieces from everything and really hunkered down to say, I am going to be a person who doesn't give up. I would look at all my sobriety dates and I was just like, I'm ashamed. I'm in such the shame cycle. I am self-sabotaging myself with this poison. I'm a loser. And I'm like, stop being a martyr and a victim, Michelle. You are a person who isn't giving up, and you are not going to give up on yourself. You have 2 kids who I don't ever want my children to know what it's like to be parentless. And I am slowly killing myself, and they will be me. And I know what that feels like to have your parents gone for physical health reasons, not slowly suicide by the bottle.
Yes.
But that was my motivation to know that my children needed me and I needed to be there for them. And that was really where the turn took, of learning of how is alcohol really affecting me? What benefits is it providing? What value am I getting from this? Instead of protecting and figuring out every way that I could keep alcohol in my life. That's really when the tables turned.
It makes so much sense, right? When we look back, I think that's one of, there are many downsides to addiction, but hindsight is 2020, right? We realized so many things about ourselves and how we were ruining our lives and self-sabotaging, to your point. And only after we have the clarity of mind is when we realize these things. So I think that is, for me at least, why sharing my story and helping those who are still struggling is so important, to try to help realize those things. So thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely.
I recorded an episode earlier today, and it must be the theme because we were on the topic of, having to want your sobriety and want your recovery for yourself. And your story is the perfect example of that. But I can only imagine, I'm not a parent, but I can only imagine that wanting it to better the lives of your children is a damn close second.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's hard. And especially like you just said, in hindsight, it's like, what are you doing? You are self-destructing. This isn't what anybody signed up for, but when you're sick and you're in your disease, it's such a different perspective. You are sick, you are emotionally broken, and it's hard to see your way out of something that has been such a slow progression of digging and digging and digging, because what was once helpful is now the most harmful thing that we could be doing to ourselves. But there's so much shame around that.
Right. Yeah. The shame is huge. You said something that it has been like circling in my brain since. And it's so true that oftentimes we just look for the differences. And I think it plays into that protection of our disease and our addiction. And I think it's, the fact that we always say, I'm not as bad as that person. What would you say to a listener who we can enlighten on how to look for the similarities instead?
Right. And I think that there's such stigma, obviously, in the spectrum of what alcohol use disorder looks like, that we need to welcome ourselves into the 21st century of, it's not normie versus rock bottom drunk. Alcoholics Anonymous is your only option, and you live under a bridge and you're footless drinking
Right.
out of a brown paper bag.
Right.
And so I think that people, again, find the similarities, and it's like, listen to people's stories of hope, of inspiration, of what is this providing you, because you will end up in the same place. And so it's like, if you have a problematic relationship with drinking, we can stop and look at that at any time. We don't have to wait for this black, dark hole of a moment to say, I need help. Just start listening to the whispers. Are you getting acid reflux? Are you getting tummy pain? Are you getting migraines? Are you breaking out in your face? Like, those are similarities in people, but listen to your own body. Don't sit there and look at, I'm not as bad as so-and-so. Why would you want to wait until you're that bad? Right.
Right.
So it's like, if you're getting migraines, like, that's your body telling you something. Listen to that. We think that it has to be DUIs and, blackouts and broken bones. And it's like, it gets there. Trust me.
Yes.
I've got a lot of broken bones and, everything to prove that. But people just think it's so far into the future. So I think it's really reeling it into, what is this doing for you? Is what negative consequences are resulting into your drinking versus it's not that bad yet. So that's where I would start, is just not looking for obscene, absurd, I'm that far out of the spectrum, to where there are things that are making this harmful for you.
The first person that I found myself relating to at a speaker meeting was a probably 75-year-old woman at a 12-step meeting. And, on the outside, we probably didn't think that we would relate to one another, but she started talking about the feelings that she had as a child and the feelings that sort of carried with her throughout like early adulthood and into the beginning of her disease, and the way in which she just described the fear making decisions for her in her life. Yeah, to your point, it could be one of many things, but just to have an open mind and kind of that, listening ear and be open to it.
Right. And I think that that's part of the 12-step process of, like, when I went in, being a newcomer, it's like, what do I have to add? Right. These people, I wasn't looking for inspiration at that point. I was still resistant. I was looking for, holy cow, these people scare me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I could possibly become this, but it's like, the newcomers need to know that that's not intimidating. That's inspiration. You can be there. And those old timers need the newcomers to remember that first drink's going to get you drunk.
Yeah.
Like, we need you just as much as you need us.
Yeah.
And so that's, and now that you share your story, I did have a similar story with a gentleman who did do something similar to me with that. And he, was just like, this like brown paper bag right here, Michelle, you're going to be looking for 40s out of garbage cans. And I was like, you're ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know what? I was running to every damn different liquor store, gas station, finding things. I mean, anything to plug my nose and chug this stuff. Like, I mean, that's where I got towards the end. I was like, it was insanity. And I never believed that it would be true. Never. From top shelf to random gas stations with change, looking for shots and 40s. I mean, come on. Like, I never, ever dreamed that would be my reality. Just goes to show that nobody is immune, and this disease does not discriminate, period.
It does not discriminate. And I think that portion of my disease when it went from that, like, this is still fun, and I'm
Hmm.
doing it socially, to like that more miserable necessity drinking, like that
Yes.
portion of it seemed to happen like in the blink of an eye. And I think, to your point, why let it get there? Let's address things now.
Well, and it's like, let's everybody, like, generationally, it's like, let's do keg stands and let's do adult drinking games until we black out and forget about our kids and let's play beer pong. It's all fun and games, but it's like I'll always say it's not so glamorous when you can't stop drinking.
Yeah.
There is this point where not everybody has an on and off switch. And, there's this predisposition where all of a sudden I poked the bear. I had this predisposition, and alcoholism ran in my family, and it was susceptible. I had dealt with a lot, and I wasn't dealing with it other than just increasing my alcohol intake. And I became addicted like anybody else can. When they continue to go back to an addictive substance, you can become addicted as well, and so it's just like lean in and be like, whoa, maybe today I shouldn't have that drink just because I'm stressed. Maybe I could go hit the gym or take a nap, and it's
Yeah.
like finding different things. That it's like those leaky buckets. It's like you're just putting a band-aid on a solution, right? And
Yes.
it's like there's going to be a consequence on the other side of that, and I want something that's not going to give me that consequence, even though it might give me that instant gratification in the moment. So that's one thing that I looked at when I started saying, okay, I need to reel this in and find different ways of coping, in a different way of living that's going to look a little bit different than it has the last decade of my life.
Do you have siblings?
I do. Yes, I'm the middle. I've got two sisters.
Do they struggle with addiction?
Yes. My youngest sister is 10 years sober.
Amazing. Congrats,
Yes.
sister.
Yes, she started, drinking in college and had problematic drinking, and before mine was ever problematic, and so I was really there to support her. So it was very awkward to have the tables turned, but it was a very, very supportive relationship. And my older sister's not there yet. Her drinking hasn't gotten as problematic, but we're in the denial stage, and
Got it.
so I'm not in the place right now where I can share as much. There's that resistance and
Yeah.
denial, and who do you think you are? And so
Right.
it's just
Right.
like, I'm going to love you from here, and
Yes.
we're going to keep doing our thing.
And
And
I'll be
so,
ready when you're ready.
mhm,
I'll be here when you're ready.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Lead by example and keep focusing on myself and loving everybody for where they're at. And when they're ready, they're ready. Took me a heck of a long time.
To your point, my sister as well. I mean, she's saved my life on a few occasions, but there was a day where I just became willing to like throw my hands up and surrender. She did it like, in the right way, and was just kind of loving from not even really afar, but just waiting for the day when I became ready. And it came, and she was ready to pounce on it, man. She wasn't going to waste any time.
Oh my God, I love your sister already. I
Yeah.
have like goosebumps. Like,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what happened with me. And I think it happens with everybody. It's like all of a sudden, it's like, drop that drink. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely done. Don't wait for Monday. Don't wait for the new
Yeah.
year. Like, it's significant to that date because that's the date that you pick, and run with it.
It
Right.
was just literally that like split second moment of clarity where I had just had enough and was disgusted enough with myself and where
Mhm.
things had gotten, that I was like, okay,
Yep.
let's go. And she was ready. So
Bless her. We need those people in our
we
lives.
sure do. We sure do. Whatever front that we put up, sometimes it's usually coming from a place of fear and hurt, and, the sense of inadequacy. And, it may come out with anger, or it may come out with violence, or whatever it may manifest itself in sometimes. But
Right.
I think an overriding theme that I see with most alcoholics and folks who struggle with addiction is that sort of internalized hurt.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How did I get to this place? And it's not fair. Why me?
Yeah.
It's like, I guess it's your thing. Everybody has a thing, and this is just the way it's going to have to be. And I think when you acknowledge and finally come to that place of acceptance, that leaves endless possibilities of things that you and I can do, Nate. Like, it's okay, I can't freaking drink. Great. I'm not going to black out. I'm not going to lose money. I'm not going to lose my husband. Like, let's go,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Oh, it's so true. I can start a fucking podcast and try to help
Yes.
other people.
It's the
It's
promises.
it
They
truly
will,
is.
they continue to unfold and to present themselves when they're supposed to. It's divine timing. And if people just stick around long enough and believe in themselves and just literally take it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, put enough distance between you and your substance, and endless things, I mean, beautiful things will appear, and people give up, including myself, because they're comparing where you're at, the hard part, with the comparison of long-term recovery is not even comparable. We can't do it. And so we're on this habitual hamster wheel, just doing the hard parts of sobriety and recovery. And it's like, stick around, because I promise you, it is so amazing. And we
Oh,
don't stick
that's
around
such a
long
good
enough.
point of people who sort of chronically relapse. They are always in the hard part.
Uh-huh.
They
It was
never
always,
realize the beauty of it.
they don't get it, they don't give themselves the opportunity to experience that. So I was always going through the withdrawals and the shakes and the nausea and the, days and weeks of it. And then I give up right before the miracle happened, because I'm like, too much distance. I forgot what that consequence was, or so and so forgave me and I can do things different. Give yourself an opportunity to see what it's like being a non-drinker or a non-user. We deserve it. It's amazing. It's amazing. If I could go back and tell myself that,
Ugh,
give yourself enough opportunity. Like, just do it.
yes, it's like I kick myself sometimes for so much wasted time, but then I try to reset
Yeah,
and say, I'm grateful for what has gotten me here today. So it's,
absolutely.
I have to look at it in that regard and be grateful for what I've been through and where it got me.
Absolutely. Because we can get caught up in our mind with that. And it's like, but we could still be there too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like better late than never that we got ourselves out of the cycle, and we are fighting every single day for ourselves and everybody else who is still there, that it is possible. So yeah, it's really easy to find ourselves crossing that shame and that guilt, but we have to remember we don't live there anymore. We don't. And we are here, not there. And
Yes.
onward we go. Onward, we have the rest of our lives to create something amazing. And that's what clearly both of us are doing. And we couldn't be doing that if we didn't take the risk and believe that we were worthy enough for something different. And I so applaud people like you, me, people who are in recovery and working on themselves. Other normal people don't do this, right? So it's
It's
like,
true.
it's not even about the drug or the drinking. This is just a coping tool. Like, we get to actually deal with trauma and who we are and our invalidating environments, and find the beauty in this mess and create our messages of like, okay, that's happened to me, that really sucks, and that wasn't my fault, but guess what, we're responsible for fixing it and
Right.
figuring out how we're going to live the rest of our lives and break cycles and create something different for ourselves and our generations to come. And that's pretty awesome,
It is
right?
awesome. It's amazing. And I think like a good point that you made was, folks who kind of put themselves out there and try to, help other people. Listen, it's still part of our recovery too. We are still evolving and focused on our own recovery and dealing with probably the same thing that many of you listening are. And, it's one day at a time for us too.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's 1 hour at a time.
Yes,
Correct.
thank you.
You know what? I sometimes I turn in at 6 o'clock at night and tell my husband, like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I can't. I have to go to bed right now, because I want to wake up and be here for you guys. Like, and that was early. And sometimes I'll still do that once in a while, but it's like, what your limit is. I'm not superwoman, and my expectations of what I had were always making me fail and fall short. And right now, we are all in the midst of just doing the best that we can, right? It's like,
Yes.
we don't have to compete and do what so and so is doing in their recovery, and looking at someone's chapter 1 to someone's chapter 43. It's like, don't go there. You're self-sabotaging. Look for inspiration and guidance. Don't look for the comparison in a way that you're not going to be successful and that you will always be a failure. Because that's your addict talking. It's our addiction. It wants us to play small, and it's fighting, it's screaming, and it's going to throw a tantrum until we fight through it and say, guess what? I tell my wine witch, sit down, take a seat. We're having a mocktail. How long are you going to stay today?
Right.
I'm like, it's like my imaginary friend at first. I was like, dude, Courtney, sit down. Like, what are we going to fight on today? Because I don't have any booze. I don't have my keys. I have all my, supports in line. I got my phone tree over here. I'm playing with my kids. I got pizza delivered. All of my triggers, all of everything that you're going to throw at me is all ready. So let's bring it. Like, seriously, it was like, I'm ready. I'm pumped up at this point.
So that's a good segue. How did the Mommy Wine Circle Club turn into the Sober Mom Squad?
I met all of the ladies through social media and Sober Mom Squad. I never knew them outside of drinking days. And so we decided that, well, one of the gals put out a request saying, hey, there's a lot of, stuff in the pandemic, a lot of drinking. We're stressed out. We're in recovery. Like, I can't imagine what it's like for, early people in sobriety or contemplating sobriety, because of course, as we all know, the alcohol sales were just
through the roof. Yeah.
It was amazing. Like, I still am baffled by the fact that it was illegal to get haircuts, but it was legal to get cannabis and, alcohol delivered curbside, which would have been my dream.
Right.
But there is the harm reduction component that people need alcohol. So there's that other flip side. And we can't inundate our hospitals with alcohol detox protocols all day long when we're trying to save people from COVID. So I get that. And so what we decided is there is this need, and how can we serve these women who are homeschooling, who are over drinking, and their kids, all the things, right? They're working from home. And so we created a platform for women to come together and just talk. And that was every Wednesday. We still have it over a year.
Wow.
And it's talk about sobriety, talk about mental health, postpartum, homeschooling, remote working, things that are just really hard conversations to have. And so anybody who's a mom is welcome to join us. And we've created now a membership program in addition to that, where women can come together that are moms. And we talk about moms in like angel moms, bereaved moms, patiently waiting moms, dog moms. Let's just get as many moms as we can. And come together and talk. And we have 25 meetings every single week, which is a lot to accompany and to really work in like helping all time zones, because we're all over the world in the map at this point. And so we're still going strong with just loving on women who are just, all sober curious all the way to actively in recovery, living a sober life.
I've been wanting to ask this, but I think now it's appropriate, about your partner, now husband. Mm-hmm. So you've been with him since you were 15?
16, right after my father died. Yep, I was 15, and then I met him when I was 16.
That's amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. I love that. I don't really hear that so much anymore. No. You know what I mean? Not the high school sweetheart.
What's bizarre is that my parents met at the same high school, the same age.
No way.
Isn't that just bananas? Yeah.
Yes.
So he came into my life, and I was like, you're kind of nerdy, and he actually wasn't. He's nerdy, but he was like the captain of the football team and all these things. And I was like, what do you want with me? Like, I'm grieving. Like, men just come into my life clearly and leave. Like, what do you want? He was that breath of fresh air. He was that goofball. He is like the soft place to land. He's just like this person that like doesn't need anything from me except for unconditional love and support. And we dated for 8 years, got through college, high school, all the things. He went on to the military, enlisted, and, played sports professionally. And I did my thing, and we finally, after 8 years, decided that we were going to get married. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess you're not going anywhere. 26 years strong, and geez, I lost count of the wedding. I think 17 years married, if that adds up right.
Yeah.
So it's, that's all we know. And I think that really played a big piece into, he knew me sober. He knew the real me. We grew up, we grieved grandparents together. Like we have this connection that's stronger than my disease was. I couldn't have done this without him.
Well, why don't you tell folks where they can find you online and a little about Recovery is the New Black?
Yes. So I can be found at recoveriesanewblack.com. Same on Facebook. I have a private Facebook community for women. Anywhere, if you want to be a fly on the wall, all the way to actively recovering out loud, it's a safe platform for you to just find community and connection. I am on recovery is a new black underscore on Instagram, and just trying to provide a lot of people with those tools, tips, and just ending the stigma. I am a counselor, so I have a private practice and I do virtual online counseling. And I'm just expanding my brand into the community of being able to provide women a safe place to really talk about the really hard things that lead to us picking up that bottle as an external solution to an internal problem. And so, I've contemplated the podcast. I wrote a book. I have it with some people on the East Coast right now. I hope that either launches the end of this year or early next year.
Amazing.
I'm so excited about that. I got a lot of other things in the work. I just did my TED Talk, which was really fun, interesting virtually to do that. And big things. I have property. I would love to build my treatment program for women to bring their kids. And it's just, I have so many dreams and goals, and I wouldn't be able to have these if I wasn't sober. And all I want to do is to serve and show up and provide hope and inspiration for people who have lost it, because I know what that's like. We both know what that's like. So I am, available for any support. My inbox is always open to people. And so that's what I'm up to. That's where you can find me. And I'm going to continue to recover out loud for the voices that don't have theirs or haven't found theirs yet. Ending the stigma, normalizing sobriety. I'm going to change those damn labels on those alcohol, put up some better restrictions. I'm working behind the scenes. I'm fighting so hard for things that I'm not using my platform for glory and for likes and comments. That's not why I'm here. It will never be. I'm purpose over anything else. Famous doesn't mean anything to me. My heart is in the place on the ground, the communities, the streets, and that is where I will always be.
I couldn't agree more. I'll be right there by your side. Let me know if I can help you in any way. I would be happy to continue a relationship and perhaps be able to work together in the future.
Yes.
I love what you're doing. I know that you are changing lives and am grateful for your time today. Michelle Smith, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening today, friends. Huge thank you to Michelle, my new bestie. Hopefully you heard something that resonates with you today, and if we help just one person, our job is done. You can find all things podcast related and subscribe to our show at thesobrietydiaries.com, youtube.com/Nate Kelly, where we upload today's video podcast, and on Instagram at the Sobriety Diaries Pod. Check back soon for new episodes with new stories to tell, but until then, try your best not to drink and be good to yourself. Bye, friends.